Unaware he owned the company signing her $800 million deal, wife poured wine on husband. Calling him unworthy to be in her elite circle, what he did next crushed her. "You're unworthy to be in my elite circle, Hunter. You stink of poverty and failure." Those were the devastating words Olivia Caldwell hurled at her husband, before pouring red wine on his face in front of investors, cameras, and 200 guests. She had no idea the man she humiliated owned the very company signing her $800 million deal. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about love, betrayal, marriage, sacrifice, and revenge. Viewers, what would you do if your wife poured wine on you in front of everyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The ballroom of the Crescent Hotel glowed with amber chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Dallas skyline. The air smelled faintly of champagne and ambition. Reporters crowded near the stage, camera flashes bursting as Olivia Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Design Group, stood at the podium, her silver-gray dress catching every glint of light. It was her night. Her company had finally landed the $800 million urban renewal contract with Trident Infrastructure Holdings, a deal that would make her one of the most sought-after female CEOs in Texas. The governor's deputy, industry heads, and investors filled the hall. Every lens pointed at her, the woman who had turned sketches on diner napkins into skyscrapers. At a table near the back, Hunter Caldwell watched quietly, hands folded, expression unreadable. He wore a simple navy suit, the kind that blended into a crowd. There were no monograms, no designer cufflinks, nothing to betray the quiet wealth behind his calm eyes. For years he'd been her quiet supporter, the one she joked was too decent for business. To Olivia, he was a sweet, under-ambitious husband, good for stability, not for power. When the host announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, the signing ceremony begins," applause thundered. Olivia smiled graciously, basking in the admiration. As she stepped down from the podium, she caught Hunter's gaze. He rose, walking toward her, a glass of champagne in hand. He spoke softly, almost like a whisper, meant only for her. "I'm proud of you, Liv. You worked hard for this." Her smile faltered. "Hunter, what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you sign," he said. "You've worked for this. I'm proud of you." A few of her colleagues turned, curious. She forced a brittle laugh. "That's sweet, but this is a corporate event. You can congratulate me at home." "I thought—" She cut him off. "You thought wrong. These are people who make billion-dollar decisions, Hunter. They don't live in your world." Murmurs rustled through the tables. A waiter froze mid-pour. Hunter's gaze didn't waver. "I'm not trying to embarrass you," he said quietly. "I just wanted to stand with you for a minute." Her cheeks flushed red, pride overtaking reason. She reached for her glass of red wine, her voice tightening until it trembled with venom. "Stand with me. You can barely stand for yourself. You're unworthy to be in my elite circle, Hunter. Look at you. You're poor. You stink of mediocrity. You have no class. Do you see these people? They wear power. You wear failure." Someone gasped. The room stilled. She lifted the glass higher. "Maybe this will help you remember your place." The wine hit his face in a crimson burst. Cold, shocking, deliberate. It splashed down his cheek, soaked his collar, ran in thin streams onto the marble floor. Gasps spread like static. A photographer's flash went off at the exact moment his head turned slightly from the impact. "Next time," she said, her voice like ice, "learn to stay within your circle." Hunter didn't move, not a muscle. The wine dripped from his jawline, a single drop landing on his cuff. For a long, breathless second, no one in the hall dared to move. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handkerchief and wiped his face once, slowly, methodically. When he spoke, his tone was level, almost calm. "Understood." Then he turned. No raised voice, no anger, just quiet dignity, cutting sharper than any outburst. He walked toward the exit, the crowd parting in silence. The only sound was the echo of his shoes on the marble. Olivia watched him go, heart racing, chest tight with the heady mix of adrenaline and pride. Someone muttered. That was harsh, but she ignored it. She tossed the empty glass onto a nearby tray, exhaled, and straightened her dress. Let's continue, she said, forcing a laugh. My husband gets emotional around success. The host hesitated, then nodded awkwardly. Of course, if everyone could return to their seats. She turned back to the stage, lifting her chin as cameras resumed flashing. She smiled the crowd as though nothing had happened. Outside, on the steps of the Fairmont, Hunter Caldwell paused beneath the soft glow of streetlights. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over 2 numbers already cued on the screen. His expression was unreadable, neither hurt nor angry, just certain. The door closed behind him, muffling the applause. Inside, Olivia Caldwell kept smiling, unaware that her words had just triggered the quietest, most devastating storm of her life. He dialed the first number. Pierce, came the voice, tight, professional. Terminate the contract, Hunter said. Yes, sir, Pierce replied without pause. Effective immediately. Announce it now. Yes, sir. Hunter ended the call. He scrolled down his contact list, pressed another number. Hayes speaking. Withdraw all Black Elm Capital funding from Caldwell Design Group. Every account, every subsidiary, Hunter said. His tone was calm, his breathing even. Yes, Mr. Caldwell. Send confirmation to my private email when done. Yes, sir. Hunter lowered the phone and looked at the night sky. The street lamps caught in the glass of nearby buildings, painting lines of amber across his face. The wine had dried stiff on his collar. He didn't care. Inside that ballroom, the orchestra shifted to a slower tune, the kind that belonged to celebration. It would not last another 5 minutes. He slipped his phone back into his pocket, straightened his jacket, and walked toward his car. Inside, the applause swelled again. Olivia lifted her chin and smiled for the cameras. The host's voice rang through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic partnership worth $800 million between 2 of the most dynamic firms in the nation. Let's hear it for the visionary leading this new era. The room burst into cheers. Olivia's pen gleamed between her fingers, poised over the folder embossed with gold trim. Mrs. Caldwell, the host said, handing her the final document. If you'll do the honors. She smiled wider, basking in the lights. It's an honor, she said smoothly. A moment we've worked years for. She was just about to sign when a man in a charcoal suit stepped quickly through the line of tables, phone pressed to his ear. One of the assistants whispered something to him. His expression changed, the blood draining from his face. He nodded once, then made his way to the front, the click of his shoes slicing through the applause. The host faltered mid-sentence. Sir? The man leaned toward him, voice low but urgent. The host froze. The crowd began to murmur. Olivia frowned. Is there a problem? The man straightened, cleared his throat, and said carefully, We've just received an order from the executive office. The contract signing is suspended. Her pen paused midair. Suspended? What are you talking about? I'm sorry, ma'am, he said, his voice tight, unsure. The directive came through less than a minute ago. We're to terminate all proceedings immediately. That's impossible, she snapped. There must be some mistake. I wish there were. He nodded to the other executives who were already rising, exchanging glances, checking their phones. The buzz in the hall shifted from confusion to disbelief. Photographers lowered their cameras. The champagne toasts stopped mid-lift. Someone whispered, What happened? Olivia looked around, her heart hammering. No, this doesn't make sense. The CEO wouldn't cancel a deal like this without notice. Who gave the order? No one answered. The representative hesitated, eyes flicking to the side as if looking for an escape. Then he said quietly, "It came directly from the top." Her throat tightened. "From the top?" "Yes, ma'am." The words landed like stones. Around her, chairs scraped back. Executives began collecting folders and laptops. The lights that had felt warm minutes ago now felt hot and merciless. Her assistant rushed forward, phone trembling in her hand. "Olivia, something's wrong. We just got an email from Black Elm. They are withdrawing all their invite." "What?" Her voice cracked. "They said, and I quote, 'Effective immediately, all funding support has been withdrawn. Future communication not required.'" It came from the director's office. Olivia stared at the screen, the words blurring as her pulse thundered in her ears. "That's not possible. They're our anchor investor." The assistant's voice shook. "Not anymore." The man from Trident closed his folder and turned to leave. "I'm very sorry, ma'am. I'm afraid we're done here." Olivia's knees felt weak. "Wait," she shouted. "You can't just walk out. We had an agreement." But he was already halfway across the floor. A few guests glanced back with pity. Others simply hurried toward the doors, eager to escape the unraveling. The microphone still hung in front of her, catching her ragged breathing. The contract lay open, her signature line empty and untouched. The cameras kept clicking, each flash more intrusive than the last. Her lover, Daniel, moved toward her, whispering under his breath, "Liv, we need to go. Something's happening. We don't understand." She shook her head, still staring at the documents. No, this was supposed to be mine. They can't just take it." But the ballroom was already hollowing out, guests leaving in hurried whispers, the waiters unsure whether to pour or clear. The air smelled faintly of wine and panic. Outside, under the same chandeliers that had seen her triumph minutes ago, the glass she'd thrown still lay near the table, shards scattered across the marble, a small pool of red soaking into the seams. Olivia's eyes found it from where she stood. Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. The sound around her dulled, replaced by a high, steady ringing in her ears. She sank slowly into her chair as the last of the Trident team disappeared through the doors. The applause, the speeches, the lights. It was all gone, as if none of it had ever happened. In that cavernous silence, she whispered his name, barely audible. Hunter. And somewhere far from that room, Hunter Caldwell leaned back in the car, the city lights sliding across his window like ghosts. He closed his eyes and let the quiet settle around him as the first alerts from Trident's internal system began to roll in. Inside the ballroom, the final echo of laughter faded into the clink of glass, and Olivia Caldwell realized she had built her entire world on a foundation owned by the man she had just humiliated. Hunter Caldwell drove through the quiet streets of Highland Park with the windows slightly open, letting the night air wash over him. The city lights slid across the windshield in long, golden streaks. His hands stayed steady on the wheel. No music, no phone calls. Just the hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of the road. At a red light, he reached up and loosened his tie. The faint scent of wine lingered on his shirt collar, dried and sour, but he didn't bother to change. The light turned green. He drove on. When he pulled into the driveway, the motion sensor lights bathed the front of the house in a soft glow. Everything looked exactly as he'd left it, calm, ordered, untouched. He hung his jacket on the rack, walked into the kitchen, and poured himself a glass of water. The house was silent, the kind of silence that felt earned. He leaned on the counter, took a long sip, and exhaled slowly. His phone buzzed once on the marble top, a text from Pierce confirming both orders executed, the second from Hayes. All withdrawals complete. Market will respond by morning. He didn't reply. He set the glass in the sink, turned off the kitchen light, and walked down the hallway. In the bedroom, he loosened his shirt cuffs, sat on the edge of the bed for a moment and stared out the window at the dark stretch of the skyline. Then, without another thought, he lay back and closed his eyes, Sleep came easily. Across town, Olivia Caldwell sat frozen in the back seat of the hall, her body shaking. The ballroom lights still burned in her eyes. The stunned faces, the sudden voices, the representative saying, "The order came from the top." It looped in her head like a broken record. "Liv, come on, you can't stay here," Daniel said. She didn't move. Her lipstick had faded to a pale outline, her hair fallen loose against her shoulders. The white of her dress was streaked with faint red stains from the wine she'd thrown earlier. "Olivia," Daniel said again, softly this time. "Let's go. You're in shock." She blinked, her voice low and broken. "Everything just stopped." "I know. Let's get you out of here." He helped her from the seat, his arm steady around her shoulders. Cameras still flickered from the distance near the hotel exit. Reporters trying to understand what had just happened. The laughter that had filled the hall hours ago was gone, replaced by whispers and confusion. Daniel opened the passenger side of his black sedan and guided her in. She leaned her head against the window, staring blankly as the city lights moved past, reflections stretching like bruises across the glass. He drove without a word. No music, no questions. The roads were nearly empty. When they reached his apartment downtown, he helped her inside. She sank onto the couch, still wearing her heels, hands trembling in her lap. Daniel went to the kitchen, poured her a glass of water, and placed it in front of her. She didn't drink it. She just stared at the faint ripples on the surface. "It'll make sense in the morning," he said quietly, trying to sound reassuring though he didn't believe it himself. She whispered, "It already doesn't." He didn't answer. He went to turn off the lights, leaving only the faint city glow spilling through the curtains. When he turned back, she was still sitting there, eyes fixed on nothing, breathing shallow, her body shaking each time she replayed his voice in her mind. "Enjoy the celebration, Olivia. You'll need the light where you're going." Sometime near dawn, she fell asleep on the couch, her makeup smudged, her phone still clutched in her hand. By morning, the world had already decided her fate. Her phone buzzed again and again, dozens of notifications lighting up the dark screen beside her. She stirred, groggy, eyes puffy from a sleepless night. Daniel stood by the window, phone in hand, his expression grim. "Liv," he said, "you should see this." She sat up slowly, rubbing her temples. "What is it?" He turned the screen toward her. Every major business outlet glowed in bold headlines. Trident Infrastructure cancels $800 million partnership minutes before signing. Mysterious investor withdraws full funding from Caldwell Design Group. Caldwell Design Group faces backlash as she poured red wine on her husband's face during her signing ceremony. Her eyes scanned the words in silence. Each headline struck like a physical blow. She opened her own phone. Hundreds of unread messages, dozens of missed calls. Social feeds already flooded with clips from the previous night. Her laughter, the splash of wine, the silence after. Someone had filmed everything. In one video, slowed and zoomed in, the wine left her glass in a perfect red arc, hitting his face in a cinematic strike before he turned away. The caption beneath it read, "She poured wine on her husband at her own signing. 10 minutes later, the deal vanished." Olivia's hand trembled. No, this can't." Daniel's voice broke softly through the quiet. "It's everywhere, Liv." She pressed her palms against her forehead, her chest rising and falling unevenly. The room felt too small, too bright. Outside, the city moved on. Cars, sunlight, life, all unaware that hers had ended the night before. Across town, Hunter Caldwell woke without an alarm. The house was still, no phone calls, no noise from outside. He stood, stretched, and walked barefoot to the kitchen. The glass he'd used the night before was still on the counter, faint fingerprints smudged around the rim. He poured another glass of water, took a slow drink, and watched sunlight crawl across the floor. His phone vibrated once on the counter. He glanced at the notification. News alerts, trending headlines, his name in places he hadn't seen it in years. He didn't open them. The doorbell broke the silence. A single chime. Then another. He set the glass down and walked toward the door. When he opened it, Olivia stood there. Her eyes were swollen. Her lipstick faded to nothing. The ivory dress from the night before now creased and dull. She looked exhausted, lost, like someone who had run out of explanations before even trying to speak. "Hunter," she said softly. "Can I come in?" He didn't say a word. He stepped aside. She walked past him into the living room, her heels scraping lightly against the hardwood. For a long moment she just stood there, arms crossed, looking at the floor as if trying to find her balance. Then she turned to him, eyes glassy. "Everything's gone wrong," she whispered. "The contract, the investors, everything. It's like the world just flipped overnight." Hunter didn't respond. He leaned against the wall, arms folded, his face unreadable. "I don't understand it," she went on, voice trembling. "One minute we were celebrating and the next the representatives just stopped me. They said there was an order from above to terminate the contract." She tried to smile through the panic. "You know how these things go. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, right? Someone probably messed up the paperwork or sent the wrong instruction. It'll clear up, it has to." Hunter's expression didn't change. She rubbed her temples, pacing. And then the emails came in. Black Elm pulled every investment, the accounts are frozen, the stocks are crashing, the press is already talking. "Hunter, I don't even know where to start." Still nothing. She looked at him, searching his face for comfort, the way she always did when things went wrong. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. I needed you." Hunter poured her a glass of water, placed it on the table between them. "You didn't sleep," he said quietly. "I couldn't." She sat, hands shaking as she gripped the glass but didn't drink. "It's bad, Hunter. Really bad. I've never seen anything like this. It's like someone just pressed a button and erased my life overnight." He studied her for a long time. "Someone?" She nodded weakly. "I don't know who. Maybe a competitor. Maybe someone from the board. I'll find out, but Her voice cracked. "I just needed to tell you. Like I always do." Hunter walked past her to the window. The morning light caught his face, outlining him in pale gold. He turned slowly, his voice calm, even. "That's what you get when you bite the finger that feeds you," he said. Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I gave the order." For a moment the world stopped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You... what?" The words landed like a blow. She froze, staring at him as if the air had been sucked out of the room. You did this?" He nodded once. "Trident doesn't work with arrogance, and Black Elm doesn't invest in people who humiliate their own partners." Her voice broke. "Trident? Black Elm?" He looked at her. "You really never asked where the funding came from, did you? Or who owned the company you were so desperate to impress?" Her knees weakened. "Hunter, I believed in you," he said quietly. "I built your company from the shadows. Every investor, every introduction, every check, it all came from me. Through a trust, through Black Elm. I thought I was helping you grow. But last night you showed me what you really thought of me." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't care to." She shook her head. "Hunter, I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Please let me fix this. Let me talk to whoever you need me to. I can apologize, rebuild." He cut her off. "You can't fix this. Please." Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Don't do this to me. Don't let me lose everything. You can pull the order back. You can call them." He exhaled slowly, almost sadly. "You poured wine on me in front of a room full of people, Olivia. You called me poor. You told me I wasn't worthy to stand beside you, and the entire city watched it happen. Tell me, what part of that do you want me to undo first? She sobbed, stepping closer, gripping his arm. Hunter, please. I was stupid. I let pride talk for me. I love you. He looked down at her hand, then gently pulled away. You love what I gave you. Not me. That's not true. He picked up the empty glass from the counter and set it in the sink. You once said I didn't belong in your world. You were right. She backed away, shaking her head. No, don't say that. We can start over. I'll do anything. I'll leave the company. He turned toward her, his voice calm and final. You can't start over from something you destroyed yourself, and you won't get a second chance at what I've protected. What do you mean? The trust, he said simply. Everything I own, every company, every share, is under an irrevocable trust I created before we married. You can't touch a dime of it. Not in divorce, not in settlement, not in court. Her breath hitched. You're divorcing me? I've already called my lawyer. The words left her hollow. She staggered back a step, gripping the edge of the couch for balance. Hunter, please. I'll sign anything. Just don't leave me with nothing. He studied her face for a long, quiet moment. You already did. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence between them was so thick it seemed to swallow the room. Outside, a bird landed on the window ledge, its wings catching the sunlight before flying away. She dropped to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Please, Hunter, I'm begging you. I can't do this alone. He looked down at her, expression unreadable. Then he said softly but firmly, You should have thought of that before you threw wine on the man who built your future. He turned away, walked down the hallway, and closed the bedroom door behind him. Olivia stayed where she was, the sound of her sobs echoing through the quiet house. The water glass sat untouched on the table, sunlight glinting off its surface. For the first time, she understood what true silence meant, when even forgiveness has left the room. Viewers, do you think Olivia deserves a second chance? Drop your thought in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.